Can you record the NHS? It's a very pertinent question, which I didn't know the answer to for a long time until I read the right document for the NHS Trust that my question was concerning, and I found out the answer. What I want to make clear before you watch any more of this video is that I'm not giving you legal advice and that you should seek your own independent legal advice. It's really annoying when people say that, and I personally hate it quite a lot of the time when people say that, because I don't have a solicitor, and if you need to know the answer to something, you don't always have time to seek independent legal advice. But what you can do is look on the NHS Trust's website. So wherever you are, if you're in a hospital or if there's a member of NHS staff who's treating you, then they'll always work for an NHS Trust. NHS Trusts have websites, and most of them will have a document you can download from their website, and that will tell you the answer categorically to the question of whether you can legally record the NHS in your area. This video is just about Devon Partnership NHS Trust, and I found that you could record them, and it was deemed to be personal note-taking in their document. I needed to know for a lot of different reasons quite some time ago, and it's very useful to find out that I was able to. There's a document, their document is titled Mobile Devices and Access to Wi-Fi in the Care Environment Policy, and this was version 1.2. It's an older version, and in a nutshell it says in that document that unlike NHS practitioners, a person in receipt of medical intervention does not need permission to record a medical consultation or treatment. Such recordings, which are made either covertly or overtly to keep a personal record of what was said during a consultation, are deemed to constitute personal note-taking and are therefore permissible. While a person does not require permission to record a consultation, common courtesy would suggest that permission should be sought in most cases. So it says it constitutes note-taking. So it's just like writing down notes with a biro and a piece of paper, but you're using your mobile phone to do that. It doesn't specify whether you're going to use audio or video. Most of the time it's more convenient to just take an audio note. Pretty much every mobile phone has got the ability to take an audio note, so does your laptop, so does your tablet, and that's generally speaking the most convenient way to do that. You can also use video too if you need to or you want to for any reason. It doesn't specify that you can't in this NHS document, but like I said, you'll have to check with your own NHS Trust. They might have different policies. I haven't read all of them. The next bit, relevant bit in the document, says the content of the recordings is confidential to the person, not the doctor or the healthcare staff. So it's your confidential medical information. They don't have a right to confidentiality. So they're just human beings doing a job, and it's nice to ask them if you can record them, but you don't have to if you don't want to, and especially if they're saying something or doing something untoward, then they might say you can't record them, or they might refuse to do that, which is kind of difficult, but you do have the right to share that information, waive that confidentiality, because it's yours and it doesn't belong to the person who is treating you. The content of the recording is confidential to a person, not the doctor or the healthcare staff. The person can waive their own confidentiality as they wish. This could include disclosing the details of their consultation with third parties, or even posting and or sharing the recording in unadulterated form on the internet through social media sites. That was the old one. They've made a new version of the document now, which is kind of a little bit better in some ways. I'm going to show it to you. But it's sort of ambiguous too. Have a look and see what you think. So if you go to, where did I get it? I've written it down somewhere. So if you go to, in this instance, I just went onto the Devon Partnership Trust website, and I went to Resources, Policies and Procedures, and then I clicked on Clinical, and then there was a drop-down list that said Mobile Devices in the Care Environment. But if you go onto your NHS Trust website and look for the Resources or for the policy documents, you should be able to find the right one, and that will give you the definitive answer. But I'm going to talk you through this one and the update to it. So let's see if I can I put myself in the corner? I don't know. So this is what the document looks like. Just pop myself there. This is the new one. 1.3. And it's pretty much the same, but it's got a few extra bits in there. First bit you'll notice is that they've put, the other document didn't have this before. So and you kind of had to read through it. It was only 4 pages of A4, but you had to read through it for it to really get a definitive answer. But they've updated it now, and they've put right at the top that note-taking using a recording device is permissible, and you don't need permission from the clinician to do that, which is cool. And if we go down, this is the updated bit. It's a little bit different in some ways, and in some respects it is more comprehensive. There's also a couple of things in there that aren't kind of that great, in my opinion, and I think it's really important that the rights of people's kind of data protection and the rights of people's kind of health and safety, civil liberties, are kind of balanced out. So I'm going to talk through a couple of these bits because it raises some good points which I think are really relevant, but it also is a little bit ambiguous at points, maybe you might think. So the first bit, can I put myself there? So the first bit says, privacy of all people in an inpatient or community facility must be respected by the users of the mobile devices. Permission must be sought and documented should a person wish to record in a communal area. This bit is quite relevant. So, I mean, if you do record and you want to record a consultation, I would advise asking if you can go into a private room and locking the door. Might seem a little bit extreme, but if for any reason something isn't going properly and you're at a hospital, I've had some really sneaky things done to me by people in all sorts of businesses in the past, and if you're recording something which might be a bit controversial, or even more than that, could represent something which is legally questionable or that you might need in a court of law in a prosecution, what they might do is get somebody to come and pop their head in halfway through the conversation and say, "Cooey, how are you doing?" And then you won't be able to use that audio file because it will have somebody else in there. So if you do want to have a consultation in a hospital, especially if you think that there might be something afoot, then what I would suggest is that you ask, if possible, if you could go into a small private room and explain that you don't have to explain you're going to be recording them. You know, it's a bit of a catch-22. If you think something dodgy is going on and you say that you're recording them, then they might either say, "I'm not going to have the conversation," if it's really dodgy, but they shouldn't do, but they could do, or if just because of their human rights, they don't, they're only getting paid to do a job at the hospital. Or alternatively, if you want that privacy, I would just say, I would say try and go into a private area. The problem you've got is that if you are in a ward with kind of curtains around it, a traditional ward, then you're always going to be in an area which is it's going to have other people audible in it. So that's something to take into account. But effectively, it's saying you should ask permission if you want to record in a communal area. Just don't record in a communal area. As a rule of thumb, if you stood in a corridor don't record. Go into a quiet room, sit down and record. Because if there's third parties audible in the recording, it doesn't have any legal value. So I mean that as advice, asking for permission, even if the consultant says, yeah, it's okay for you to record me in a corridor, and 5 people walk past talking about their medical conditions and their personal information, then that recording is going to be useless. So, don't record, even if they say it's okay to record in a communal area and your NHS trust permits it. This is just a Devon Partnership Trust document. Don't do that if possible. Try and make sure that it's just you and the person that you're talking to. The next bit, it says pretty much the same thing as the other document, that you don't need permission, that they're personal records of what was said in the consultation, and they constitute note-taking, which is fine. The next bit, to say that the recording is confidential to the person, not the doctor or the staff, is pretty much the same as the other document. So you can put the consultation on social media in unadulterated form. So that means don't kind of edit it and make it a part of something else. Just put down, this is a consultation with Dr. Smith on this date, on this time, at this place, and that's okay if you want to do that. But don't sample it and make it into a track, or whatever. The legality of a person using such a recording may change once the recording is no longer used as a record of the consultation. For example, where the recording is disclosed or publicised in a modified way which is not connected to the consultation. This includes instances where it's designed to cause detriment or to harass another individual captured in the recording. Any such disclosure, publication, depending on the nature of the context, may be liable to criminal prosecution. So that's just kind of saying don't do it. Just obviously don't kind of put anything insulting or detrimental or derogatory or rude or anything like that in a recording. If you insult the person or say that they're rubbish at their job or that they're a charlatan or a liar or anything like that, you have to be polite. Don't defame them in a kind of corporate sense. Don't say, say that it's your opinion and this is how it's made me feel. If you say saying it's your opinion that they're an absolutely terrible doctor still isn't really, it's a bit dubious, but just try to be generic. If you are aggrieved and you're angry and you do make a recording of a consultation and you've had a dispute or you need to do something, try not to be too derogatory towards that person. So bear in mind that if you're going to play that file afterwards, you need to make sure that you've got you've not got anything in there which is kind of slanderous or libelous or is going to be defamatory to their character. So just be nice to them. Don't be rude and don't say things which aren't true, and don't say anything which anybody could find offensive or upsetting or prejudiced or bigoted, or just focus on matter-of-fact details. Next bit says, criminal offences could arise from unauthorised disclosure or publication of recordings from staff, depending on how that disclosure or publication is made. Offences could include an offence contrary to Section 1 of the Protection from Harassment Act, a public order offence, or a Malicious Communications Act offence. These are they're kind of covering all the bases here and saying that these could, if you do record and you take their advice, then you could be exposing yourself to these legal mechanisms if you don't do things right. It doesn't go into detail about how you could expose yourself to prosecution from the Protection from the Harassment Act, or prosecution from Public Order Act, or prosecution under the Malicious Communications Act. What it does say is that there's potential that you could get some problems for that. It goes on at the bottom bit to say that in some limited circumstances, an offence under Section 119 of the Criminal Justice and Immigration Act, causing a nuisance and disturbance to NHS staff on a hospital site, might be committed. That, again, isn't... as long as you do things sensibly, it's very unlikely that's going to happen. But these are all laws that they could use if they wanted to. If you abuse that sort of right to record at Devon Partnership Trust, because that's the only place that I'm instructing you that you've got the right to record. Should the consultation being recorded need to discuss any third-party information, then the recording should be halted so not to infringe upon other persons' right to confidentiality. In addition, they shouldn't be recorded in communal areas of the ward where the people are receiving inpatient treatment. So yeah, like I was sort of saying earlier on in the video, you don't make recordings in communal areas, even if they say it's okay. Other people in hospital do not want to be recorded. You wouldn't want to be recorded if you were getting treated in a hospital, but you've got every right to take notes. If you are at Devon Partnership Trust, you've got every right to take notes of what a doctor's saying to you, or a clinician. So bear that in mind. And these ones, the rest of them, I think, are kind of much for muchness. There's one last point, and I want to make this video less than 10 minutes. It's probably already been ages. And this is kind of endemic, really. This sort of is what I'm talking about in terms of it being... sometimes people are trying to cover their backsides, and sometimes things aren't done right. And ultimately, the people who are paid to produce this document are working for the NHS, and they are... The NHS has lots of people who unnecessarily try to litigate and prosecute and do things that you know, they're very... Some people are very dishonest and capricious and avaricious, and they have to try and defend themselves against legal prosecution and the threat of litigation, because it does happen a lot, unfortunately, and sometimes it's very important and very justified that happens. And if you do have a bad time at a hospital, I think it's incredibly important that you make you know, as many take as many notes as you're able to, legally and politely, succinctly, professionally. Collate and share that information and take action on it if you think that something's not right. But at the same time, yeah, people don't want to have a hard time. But this is a bit ambiguous. I think it's a bit ambiguous. It says that live streaming should be discouraged because it uses a lot of bandwidth. Now, really, live streaming, it doesn't use... It uses... If you live streamed on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or whatever for like an hour, it would use about sort of a couple of gigabytes if it was in HD, which is about the same as Netflix, you know, or anything. You know, you've got the sort of bit rate and the bandwidth of live streaming, and uploading is slightly different to downloading. I don't really know that much about, you know, internet stuff, but it's a bit iffy. Ultimately, if somebody says that you shouldn't, you know, be live streaming in a hospital, then don't feel that you have to turn your camera off. The Wi-Fi is not limited. You can use as much data as you want. And saying that somebody can't live stream because somebody else is watching a movie, it's a bit like saying, well, you can't watch movies because someone over there is trying to live stream. And kind of all you're going to be doing in hospital is kind of realistically using low data applications like surfing the web, using social media, using emails, reading, or if you are using data intensive, it's probably going to be things like Skype or Teams or live broadcasts or watching stuff. And all of that stuff uses the same amount of data. But they wouldn't say in the document, try not to watch movies on Netflix, because it's, but they just specified live streaming. They've said it's going to be discouraged because of data. So, yeah, just as a last point, I would, if anybody ever tells you not to live stream if you're in a hospital, it's up to you if you want to be charitable or whatever. But yeah, you don't have to not do that. Anyway, I've talked for far too long now. And I'm very tired, and I'm probably as bored of this as you are. It's been a very unprofessional and shoddy production, but I hope it's helped to answer your question. Can you record the NHS? If you are at Devon Partnership Trust, then their policy document C43 instructs that yes, you can, as long as you don't break the rules and you do things sensibly and respectfully, and if possible, as I would if I were you, in a quiet, secluded area without any interruptions or third parties audible other than yourself and the person in the recording. Thanks for watching. All the best. Have a great time, whatever you're doing. Bye.